the extended answer for the Shakespeare question. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing in this question is making sure that you are writing about the extract that you get given. Now, also, if you want to get ready and practice for the exam, you also might want to write about something that happens outside of the extract. Now, the question says, explore how Shakespeare presents Lady Capulet. Now, if you got a question that says, explore how Shakespeare presents Lady Capulet, you will have an extract that hopefully has Lady Capulet in it. And then you have to think about the role that Lady Capulet not only plays in the extract, but then also plays in the novel as a whole. Now, when I think of Lady Capulet, the first thing that I tend to do is actually go to my knowledge book and look at what she stands for, because that will help me then come up with a few ideas before reading the extract. So if I find Lady Capulet, where is she? Lady Capulet. Okay, here she is. So it says that Lady Capulet is Juliet's mother and Lord Capulet's wife. She's symbolic of traditional values, a perfect Elizabethan wife. Well, why is she that then? It's because she follows what Lord Capulet asks her to do. And ultimately, she encouraged Juliet to follow those traditional values of society. She talks about marriage. She wants her to marry Paris. She's not that bothered whether Juliet loves Paris or not. Paris is a good catch. And then you've got this idea that she's honourable, tradition, and subservient. Okay, now you can argue that she isn't actually to some extent, but it's about finding out where you decide that she's not. So the extra that I've got here is from Act 1, Scene 3. Now, I know that this one is the one where you get all the women on stage. You've got the nurse, you've got Lady Capulet, and you've got Juliet. And they are talking about the prospect of Juliet meeting Paris, and to see if Juliet can like Paris, and therefore maybe marry him. So Lady Capulet says to Juliet, well, think of marriage now. Younger than you, here in Verona, ladies of esteem are made already mothers. By my count, I was your mother much upon these years that you are now a maid. Thus then, in brief, the valiant Paris seeks for his love. Now, interestingly then, here, one of the things that I think are quite important is that she actually repeats, or she focuses on this idea of the position of women, so expectations of women. So Lady Capulet is here to emphasize and support the expectations of women. Now, she does that by saying to Julia that actually you need to think of marriage. Okay, think of marriage. And in particular, I like the way that she uses this imperative. Think of marriage. She's telling her. She's not using any modal verbs. She could be thinking of marriage. She says, think of marriage. And that shows actually her power, her position as a mother. But more, rather than nurturing, Osmo. Sorry guys, that's my dog. Rather than nurturing, she's more authoritative. She instills in her daughter tradition. Now, you may say that this is a bad thing that she's doing, ultimately, but as a parent, actually, she's doing her duty as a parent. A parent is meant to ensure that you are ready for the future, and all that Lady Capulet knows is that a woman should get married if she has a suitor, that she should then have children. And interestingly, she says, younger than you, here in Verona, ladies of esteem. Now, one of the things that we know about Lady Capulet and Juliet is that they come from a wealthy family. So the expectations of women that come from a family of wealth are even more challenging. So if you come from a wealthy family, there are even different expectations. And those expectations are to marry to better the name of your family. So to marry and made already mothers. Now, this is interesting. And made already mothers. By my count, I was your mother much upon these years. Now, look at that repetition of mothers. She's emphasizing the expectations that society has of women. And actually, she highlights, this is a contrast, how Juliet is not following these expectations. She's saying, by my count, I was your mother much upon these years. So she's suggesting that she had Juliet probably by the age of 12, maybe even sooner. And we need to remember that Juliet is not yet 14. So she's followed the traditions and she's followed the rules. Now, and then she says, thus then be brief. Now, I like this because she doesn't, like, thus then be brief. Like, thus in brief, sorry. Thus then in brief. Like, she's not elaborating or allowing Juliet to really think whether she has an opportunity if whether this is a choice or not. And she says this when she says the valiant Paris. So look at that adjective that she uses to describe Paris. Adjective here, suggesting that he is a good catch. Seeks you, like he's seeking, he's looking for his love. Now, I find this really interesting. For his love, not your love. What is Lady Capulet there suggesting? That Juliet doesn't necessarily have to love Paris. That all of this is about Paris and what he wants. So kind of enforcing. So she's enforcing. You could say actually an ingrained either misogynism whereby, sorry, I've just put all my Y's. Let me just write that again, because I've put my Y's in the wrong places, and my misogynism, not in there, misogynism, like that ultimately is not a woman's worth or role to want to decide who she marries or who she loves. It emphasizes marriage as a contract, and she very much does that. She married Lord Capulet. I'm not sure that there is love there, maybe. She's very much kind of that contract. So then, it's all about putting this into a really detailed petal paragraph. Okay, so remember you've got your point, your evidence, your technique, your analysis, and your link. Now remember that you might do petal like petal, T-A-L-T-A. So there's a few things that you might want to connect and analyze. Remember that you need to make sure that you say your because, that you really explain. To get into that level 3 response, you need to clearly explain your idea, and that your link doesn't only have to be contextual and historical, even though with Lady Capulet it does fit really well, talking about women being living in a patriarchal society, and how women are had no power, had no real worth until they were married. How women belong to their fathers and then they belong to their husbands. That might be a really good one. But ultimately as well, maybe that Shakespeare is kind of either criticizing women like Lady Capulet as a parent, who are passing on these archaic and old traditions, or maybe that he's teaching us something about parenting, and that parenting is actually quite challenging, and that ultimately Lady Capulet and Lord Capulet himself, they're just looking after Juliet's best interest. Okay, well, let's see what you come up with. Try your best, and if you've got any questions, remember you can always email your teacher for some help. Good luck.